Have you ever felt like you're carrying such a heavy burden that you don't even know how to move forward? You've had those days when everything seems to go against you. Sadness, anxiety, or fear become your silent companions. Maybe today you won't say it out loud, but inside, you're crying out for a sign, a word, something to make you feel you're not alone. I want you to know this from the very first second. God knows exactly what you're going through. There's not a single tear He hasn't seen, not a single thought He hasn't heard. It's no coincidence that you're here. You didn't arrive here by mistake. You came because your heart needed a refuge, and God is using this space as a sacred place to speak directly to you. There are moments when we don't even know how to pray. We feel so tired that the words get stuck deep inside. That's why this message is more than just words. It's a call for you to fully surrender into God's hands, to let go of control, to release your fears, to stop trying to understand everything and simply allow yourself to be embraced by His presence. Because even when we don't understand what's happening, He already has the plan written. And when we surrender to His hands, we don't lose, we find rest. If this prayer touches your life, if at any point you feel it's exactly what your soul needed, I invite you to like, comment, and share it. Not just so the video reaches more people, but because by doing so, you're becoming part of something greater. You're allowing someone somewhere in the world, and maybe someone who has no one, to feel accompanied by God, thanks to you. Truly, your action can be an immense blessing for another life. You can leave a simple but powerful comment. Just write, "God sustains me." That's what we want to declare today, that despite everything, we stand firm because there are eternal hands that will never let us go. First, God sees what no one else sees. When you're going through a difficult time, one of the hardest feelings isn't just the pain itself, but the sense that no one notices, that no one understands what you're living through inside. You might smile outwardly, even laugh with others, keep working, doing what you're supposed to. But inside, there's a storm, a silent battle, and often no one realizes it. But here's where I want you to focus. God does see it, God knows it, God feels it with you. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Do you know what that means? It means that at the very moment you feel weakest, most broken, most exhausted, God is closer than ever. We often think that when we're at our worst, God pulls away, but it's the opposite. He draws near, He stays, and He silently holds us as we cry in the depths. God doesn't need you to pretend you're okay. He doesn't want you to hide your pain behind pretty words or strong-sounding phrases. He wants your real heart, just as it is, with doubts, wounds, and exhaustion. Because when you come to Him truthfully, without masks, without filters, He begins to truly work in you. Sometimes we don't see it in the moment, but as Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Do you see? While you're thinking everything is out of control, God is preparing something you don't yet understand. All He asks is that you trust, that you don't let go of His hand, even when you understand nothing. Because the pain you carry today will become your testimony tomorrow. The wound that bleeds today will become the scar that tells the story of how God lifted you up. You don't need to explain to everyone what you're going through, justify your tears, or prove that you're trying to be strong. God already knows, and that's the most beautiful rest you can find, knowing you don't need to have all the answers because you're in the hands of the one who does. Surrender completely, not halfway, not with conditions. Give Him your pain, your exhaustion, your fear, even your anger. God is not offended by your emotions. He wants to heal them. And when you surrender, even if not everything is resolved immediately, you'll feel that peace that surpasses all understanding. That peace doesn't depend on everything changing around you. It comes from something settling inside you. So if today you're going through something you don't know how to explain, if there are nights when you cry without knowing exactly why, Or if you're just tired of pretending you're okay, I invite you to pause, close your eyes for a moment, and tell God, Lord, I know you know what I'm going through. I have no strength, but I have faith, and that's enough to keep going. This is only the first part of this encounter with God. If you're here, it's because He wants to speak to you, heal you, and show you that you're not alone, that His eyes have been on you from the very first day, and that His plan for your life is not over and won't end in the middle of this trial. Second, in His hands, everything has meaning. There's something we need to understand clearly. Many times, what you're living through right now doesn't make sense from your perspective, but it has purpose from God's perspective. And that's not just a comforting phrase, it's a spiritual reality. It's like looking at a painting up close and only seeing messy patches with no shape, no logic, no beauty. But if you step back and look from above, everything fits together. That's how it is with your life. From your view, it looks like chaos. From God's view, everything has a perfect place in the plan He has for you. One of our biggest mistakes is thinking that if something hurts, it must not come from God. But let me tell you something, and listen closely. God doesn't only use the beautiful things to shape you. He also uses what hurts, what you don't understand, what challenges you. Because in that breaking place where it seems nothing is left, that's where God begins His deepest work. Isaiah 43:2 says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze." Do you realize what He promises? He doesn't say you'll avoid the fire or never touch deep waters. He says you'll pass through them, but He will be with you. And that changes everything. Because when you know God is with you in the fire, you stop fearing it. When you know you're not alone in the pain, you start seeing that even the pain has purpose. And that's where you need to surrender fully. Surrendering to God isn't just saying, "Lord, I want you to help me." It's saying, "Lord, do with me what you know I need, even if I don't understand it." It's saying, "Even if it hurts, I trust you. Even if I can't see the way, I follow your steps. Even if it costs me, I won't let go of your hand." Look, there are battles you're fighting that actually don't belong to you. They belong to God. But He can't fight them for you if you keep wanting to control everything. Sometimes, without realizing it, you cling to the idea of how things should turn out. And when they don't go that way, you get frustrated, angry, even feel that God has forgotten you. But He hasn't. He's waiting for you to let go so you can receive. And letting go doesn't mean giving up in defeat. It means surrendering in trust. It means saying, "Father, I've done everything I could humanly do. Now, do what only you can do." And believe me, when you do that, something starts to change. Maybe not outwardly right away, but inside you, because true peace doesn't come from having a problem-free life. It comes from having a heart that rests in God, in the middle of the problems. So today, you're not just here to listen to a prayer. You're here to make an act of surrender, to say to the Lord, "Father, here's my life. I don't understand it, but I know you do. Here's my situation. It hurts, but I know you can use it. Here's my heart. It's tired, but it still has faith." And as you surrender, He begins to work. Because remember this, in His hands, everything has meaning, even what you don't yet understand. While you surrender, heaven moves. Angels act. Invisible chains begin to break because surrendering to God is opening the door of your soul for His power to enter and transform everything from the inside out. So right now, as you listen, don't take this lightly. See it as a divine appointment, as the Father's invitation to stop fighting in your own strength and let yourself be carried by His. If there's one safe place in the entire universe, it's God's hands. Think for a moment about all the things you've clung to for security. People, plans, jobs, savings, even your own abilities. At some point, we all rely on something we believe will hold us up. But then comes that unexpected moment when everything solid begins to shake. What once gave you stability disappears. What seemed certain breaks apart. And that's when your soul trembles and you face the hard question, what was I really trusting in? Here's one of the deepest lessons of walking with God. Everything on this earth can fail except the Father's hands. Yes, people fail, human promises break, paths close, but God's hands stay faithful. They're the same hands that held up Moses when he couldn't go on, lifted Peter when he was sinking, healed the lepers, multiplied the bread, and were nailed to a cross for you. If those hands haven't let you go until now, they never will. Psalm 138:7 promises, though I walk in the midst of trouble, you preserve my life. You stretch out your hand against the anger of my foes. With your right hand you save me. This is a promise, not a possibility. When you walk with God, his hand isn't just a pretty image. It's real covering, invisible but powerful. It's protection, guidance, comfort, and strength when you have none left. Sometimes we feel like God isn't acting because we don't see anything changing on the outside. Same house, same problems, same pain. But did you know that the most important things God does happen first, in the invisible, deep in the heart? While you're waiting for something outside to shift, God is already making adjustments inside. And when he finishes that inner work, that's when he starts moving the external. That's why you can't lose trust just because you don't see immediate results. God's work is perfect, but also patient. We're so used to fast, instant results that we forget great works require time. How long did it take Joseph to be shaped before reaching the palace? How long did David wait between anointing and throne? How many years did Israel walk the desert before seeing the promised land? The process hurts, but the hands shaping you know exactly what they're doing. Maybe today you feel like you're standing among ruins. Things broke in your life, relationships, dreams, emotional stability. Maybe even your faith is shaking. But hear this. God doesn't rebuild from the facade. He rebuilds from the heart. Sometimes he needs to tear down what's old, what no longer served you, what was pulling you away from him, to build something new, firm, and eternal. There's a powerful story in Jeremiah 18 where God tells the prophet, "Go down to the potter's house, and there I will give you my message." Jeremiah watches the potter work the clay. When the pot he was shaping becomes flawed, he doesn't throw it away. He reshapes it as he sees best. Do you understand the message? When you feel like your life is broken, God doesn't discard you. He doesn't say, "This is useless now." No. He starts over, forms you again, restores you his way, not yours, because you are clay in his hands. Even if you don't understand the shape your life is taking today, you can trust that the potter knows what he's doing. So if you're feeling drained, if you think you can't keep going, remember, you don't need to have control. You just need to be in the right hands. And if you're in God's hands, everything else can shake, but you will stand because his hands don't tremble, don't tire, and don't fail. One of the most painful thoughts you can have in hard times is believing God is punishing you, that everything happening is because you messed up. Yes, we all fail and make mistakes. But listen carefully. God is not an executioner waiting for you to stumble so he can make you suffer. He's a father who, even when correcting, does it out of love, not condemnation. The enemy is an expert at using your wounds to plant false ideas about God. And if you're not alert, you might think God is against you when in fact he's working in your favor from a place deeper than you can see. Hebrews 12:6 says, "Because the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastens everyone he accepts as his son." But it's not to punish you, it's to perfect you. This doesn't mean everything you suffer is correction. Often you're just in process, and process hurts because growing hurts, maturing hurts, healing hurts, letting go hurts. Not because God wants to harm you, but because he knows what you're called to do. And to get there, some things can't go with you. Wounds must close, attitudes must die. parts of your life must be purified. Malachi 3:3 says, "He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites." Do you know how silver is refined? It's placed in fire, but never left unattended. The refiner watches carefully until he can see his reflection in the metal. Only then does he pull it out. That's how God works with you. He doesn't put you in the process to leave you alone. He's watching, shaping, refining, until his image is reflected in you. The problem is, we want promises without processes. We want victories without battles. We want growth without sacrifice. But the kingdom of God doesn't work that way. To be strong in faith, you have to walk through valleys where only faith holds you. To be wise, you must face moments where the only option is to seek wisdom from above. To be humble, you need scenarios where your pride is useless. And here's where we often doubt, because as humans, we want to understand everything. We want God to explain. But there are moments when he doesn't explain, he just acts. Because if he explained everything, you wouldn't grow in faith. And God is more interested in you trusting than in you understanding, because the one who trusts keeps walking even when they don't understand. Walking by faith is what transforms your life eternally. Sometimes you don't even see what God is shaping in you, but others do. They see how you react differently, how you've matured, how you now speak with more wisdom, how you face trials with more calm. It's not that everything disappeared, it's that you're no longer alone. Now you know that what used to break you, God now uses to lift you. So today, I want to speak to that part of you that thinks what you're going through is punishment. No, it's not. It's part of the process. It's the furnace where God is refining your character. It's the desert where you're learning to depend solely on his voice. It's the cave where you're discovering who you really are, without the decorations, without the applause, without the noise. And from that deep place, God will raise you up. Remember, a process with God never ends in destruction. It always ends in glory, in restoration, in something better than you ever imagined. So don't let go. Don't step out of the furnace before time. Don't run from the season you're living through, because even if you can't see it, all of this is shaping in you something eternal, something strong, something glorious. What you're going through is preparing you for what's coming. I know sometimes, when you're in pain, all the things you hear sound repetitive. This will pass. Everything has a purpose. God is in control. And yes, they're truths. But when you hear them with a wounded heart, they can sound like empty words. But today, look at them with new eyes. Not as phrases meant just to comfort you, but as spiritual realities happening even if you can't see them. Because yes, what you're going through is not in vain, it's not a mistake, and it's certainly not the end. It's preparation. God never gives you something without first preparing you to hold it. Sometimes what you long for, peace, restoration, healing, a new chapter, a fulfilled promise, is ready. But you're not yet ready to receive it. Not because you're bad or lack faith, but because you need deeper roots, stronger character, clearer vision. If God gave you today what he promised without first strengthening you, you might lose it. And he doesn't want to give you something you can't sustain. He wants to give you something that remains. Look at Joseph, sold by his brothers, betrayed, forgotten, unjustly imprisoned. All of it seemed unfair. But when the day came for him to be raised as governor of Egypt, everything made sense. What seemed like suffering was actually training. Each day of injustice prepared him to rule with justice. Every night of loneliness shaped him to have compassion. Each dark moment was the secret place where God molded him without anyone knowing. That's what's happening with you. You're being prepared. And that preparation, even if no one applauds it, even if you sometimes feel invisible, is the greatest treasure you're storing up today. God doesn't invest time in shaping someone unless he has a glorious purpose for them. Every tear you've shed is watering a ground that will bear fruit. Every day you've held on without understanding is building a faith that will move mountains. Romans 8:28 reminds us, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. It doesn't say some things. It doesn't say only the good things. It says all things, the good, the bad, the confusing, the unexpected. All of it is working for your good, even if right now it feels like the opposite. But you need to learn to look beyond the pain, to see with spiritual eyes, to tell yourself every morning, this is not the end. This is preparing me. What makes you cry today will be tomorrow's platform to lift others. What you don't understand now will become the testimony others need to hear. Because God doesn't waste even the smallest detail of your process. And you're not just being prepared to receive blessing. You're being prepared to hold it with humility, wisdom, and a firm heart. God doesn't just want you to arrive, he wants you to remain. That when you receive what you've been praying for, you don't use it to forget him, but to draw even closer. That you don't become someone who only sought the miracle, but someone who became intimate with the one who performs miracles. So if today you feel like you're in painful training, don't give up. Don't think you're lost. Don't think you're stuck. You are being built up from the deepest places, and soon, when you look back, you'll understand why it had to be this way. You'll see you weren't being punished. You were being prepared, because what's coming for you is greater than what was lost. Do not feel bad for questioning. God is not bothered by your sincere questions. In fact, many men and women in the Bible ask them. David, in his Psalms, constantly cried out, "How long, Lord? Why have you forgotten me?" Job also raised his voice in the midst of pain. Even Jesus on the cross asked why the Father had forsaken him. It is not a sin to have questions. The key is not letting those questions drown your faith. There are moments when everything seems to fall apart, but what you see as ruin, God sees as cleared ground, ready for something new. Isaiah 61:3 promises to give those who mourn in Zion a crown instead of ashes, oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Do you know what that means? It means God not only comforts you, he transforms you. He takes the ashes of what burned down in your life and turns them into fertile ground for something new. But this is only possible when you let him build. And building is not always comfortable, because for something new to rise, often the old must be removed. Relationships that seemed eternal, opportunities you thought were essential, habits that were deeply rooted, if they do not come from God, if they do not build you up or lead you toward his plan, sooner or later they crumble. When that happens, do not see it as a loss. See it as a divine intervention to protect you from something you could not foresee. God sees further than you do. He sees deeper than you can imagine. And though you may not understand it now, if something fell, it's because it did not have the right structure to sustain the future he wants to give you. Instead of asking why, start saying, Lord, if you removed it, it's because you have something better. When everything falls apart, God teaches you to build on the rock, because maybe until now you have been building on your own strength, your own logic, your emotions, your plans. But when the ground shakes and everything collapses, you realize that the only solid foundation is Jesus. As Matthew 7:24-25 says, "Therefore everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. So if everything around you is in ruins today, do not despair. God will not leave you there. He does not watch your pain from afar. He is with you, sleeves rolled up, hands in the mud, building alongside you a new life, one founded in him, stronger, purer, more stable. And the most beautiful part is this: what he builds, no one can tear down. Because when Christ is the foundation, no matter how hard the winds blow, you will stand firm. So if today you feel like everything is falling apart, stop for a moment, breathe, look up and say, Lord, I'm ready. I don't understand everything, but I give you the broken pieces. Do what you know how to do. And trust me, He will. God never leaves a life in ruins when there's a heart truly surrendered. God is never late. He arrives right on time. One of the hardest tests in the spiritual life is not pain, not even loss. It is waiting, because in the midst of pain, at least something is happening. In loss, even though it hurts, there's movement. But in waiting, everything feels still, silent, unfair. And that is where many start to doubt. Did God forget me? Is He listening? Does He even see what I'm going through? I understand, because when you pray, cry out, fight to keep the faith, and still see no results, it's natural for the mind to fill with questions. But here's where one of the most important principles of walking with God comes in. He does not work on our schedule. He works on His, and His timing is perfect. The story of Lazarus is a powerful example. Jesus deeply loved Lazarus and his sisters. Yet, when He heard Lazarus was sick, He did not go immediately. He waited, and by the time He arrived, Lazarus had already died. For everyone else, it was too late. Nothing could be done. But Jesus looked at the tomb and with authority said, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man walked out. What everyone thought was over, God used to reveal His glory. John 11:40 records Jesus' words. Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? That's where you must fix your eyes when you feel God is silent. His silence is not absence, it's preparation. Because when He arrives, He doesn't come to repair halfway. He comes to resurrect what you already thought was lost. God is never late. He doesn't improvise. He doesn't get distracted. He's working on details you cannot see. While you think nothing is happening, He's aligning hearts, opening doors, preparing the ground. And when everything is ready, not before, not after, His hand will move, and you will realize that every second of waiting had a purpose. But there's something even deeper. Waiting also transforms you. Because while you wait, you learn to depend, to trust without seeing, to love God not for what He does, but for who He is. It's in the waiting that faith is shaped. Not a faith based on emotions, but a faith anchored in the faithful character of God. Isaiah 40:31 says it with power. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Waiting on God does not weaken you, it strengthens you. The longer you wait, the deeper your roots go. And the deeper your roots, the higher He will lift you when the time comes. Maybe today you are in that stage where everything seems frozen. Your prayers have no visible answers. Your plans are on hold. Your dreams seem asleep. But know this with certainty. God already has the date marked on heaven's calendar. And when that day comes, you will see it was never a delay. It was a divine strategy, so everything would fit perfectly. So if you're waiting, don't despair. Use this time to talk to God more than ever, to know Him deeply, to strengthen your faith. Say to Him, Lord, I don't understand why this wait, but I accept it with an open heart. Because if you haven't done it yet, it's because something better is coming, something I can't imagine, but you can. And remember, when God takes His time, it's because His blessing will be bigger than you thought. And when it comes, you won't doubt for a second that every moment of waiting was worth it. There are days when you wake up and simply have no strength. You don't know if it's physical exhaustion, emotional weight, spiritual burden, or all of it together. You just know that something inside feels dim, heavy, almost at the edge of collapse. And maybe you don't even have the words to explain it. You're just there, surviving, doing your best to stay standing, trying not to fall apart completely. And the most painful part is when, in the middle of all that, you don't feel God. You don't feel His presence. You don't see His hand. You don't hear His voice. You read the Bible. You pray. You listen to worship. But everything seems silent, empty. You wonder if God has left you, if he's really there, if he still cares about what's happening to you. And the answer is a resounding yes. Yes, he is with you, even when you don't feel him. Faith doesn't always show up in emotions. And God, though he often makes himself felt powerfully, also works in the invisible, in the quiet, in what your senses can't detect, but your spirit holds on to. Because there are moments when you don't need a sign, you need a decision. The decision to keep believing, even when nothing confirms what you believe. Deuteronomy 31:6 gives a powerful promise. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. That's his nature. He doesn't abandon you. He doesn't get tired of you. He doesn't change his mind about you. He doesn't walk away when you feel weak. On the contrary, he holds you in the silence, embraces you when you don't even know you need it, and covers you when you don't even have the strength to ask. It's like the child who sleeps in his father's arms, not even knowing he's being carried. You don't feel it, you don't see it, you don't hear it, but you are sure. Right now you are in the arms of a God who loves you more than you can understand, who sees your struggle, your exhaustion, your attempt to keep your faith alive. And he whispers tenderly, I am here. Even if you can't see me, I will not let you go. And here's something else. The silence you're experiencing is also part of his answer. Often, when God seems the quietest, he is the closest, working, strengthening your spirit, waiting for you to walk by faith and not by sight, building a trust in you that doesn't depend on your feelings, but on who he is. Psalm 94 beautifully captures this. When I said, my foot slips, your mercy, O Lord, held me up. In the multitude of my anxieties within me, your comforts delight my soul. That's what God does. He holds you when you feel like you're falling. He comforts you when you can't even find comfort yourself. Maybe you don't feel him, but that doesn't mean he's absent. Maybe you don't hear his voice, but that doesn't mean he's not speaking. Maybe you don't see his hand, but that doesn't mean he's not working. God doesn't need to be obvious to be real. If today you find yourself in a dry valley, a dark tunnel where everything seems silent, don't despair. Hold on, breathe, endure a little longer, because even if you don't feel it, he is holding you with eternal strength, and he will not let you go. Remember this every time you feel like you can't go on. You are not walking alone, you are being carried. And here's the truth. Your story will not end in defeat. Life can reach a point where everything you've lived, everything you've lost, and all the pain you've endured tries to convince you of a dangerous lie. That your ending will be failure, that your best days are behind you, that from now on you should just resign yourself, give up and settle. But that's the voice of fear, not the voice of God. Because God never writes a story that ends in defeat. He is the author of new beginnings, of impossible restorations, of unexpected twists. When the world says, it's over, God says, I'm just getting started. When everything seems lost, when your soul is too tired to fight, when the enemy wants you to believe this is your final fall, that's where God breaks in and changes everything. Look at Job. He lost everything. Family, health, possessions, emotional stability, yet God didn't leave him in the ashes. God didn't end his story with loss, but with abundant restoration, because that's his specialty, lifting up the broken and multiplying what seemed finished. Your story is also being written by this same God. Maybe today you're in a dark chapter where everything feels like it's going wrong, but the book isn't closed yet. Heaven is still writing, and as long as you have breath, there is hope. There are promises that haven't expired, doors that will still open, embraces from God you haven't felt yet, miracles still on their way. The important thing is this: don't walk away from your story too soon. Don't throw in the towel just when heaven is about to move on your behalf. Don't abandon the process when you're so close to seeing what God has prepared for you. Sometimes the hardest part is the final stretch. Just as you're about to arrive, the struggles intensify, the doubts grow stronger, your strength seems to run out, But that's precisely when you must anchor yourself to faith like never before. 2 Corinthians 4:17 reminds us, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all." What you're feeling today as an unbearable burden is producing something eternal. It's not in vain, it's not a mistake, it's not a punishment. It's part of God's plan, so that you come out of this process with more depth, more weight, more glory. If you trust, if you stay, if you surrender completely into His hands, you will see how that ending that once looked like defeat becomes victory, becomes glory, becomes a testimony. And believe me, the day will come when you will look back and say, "It was all worth it because God was faithful." Your faith in the middle of pain is a flame that God will not let die. In the deepest pain, when you run out of words, when the days seem endless and the nights fall silent, sometimes the only thing still beating, even if weak, is your faith. That faith doesn't always feel strong, but it refuses to die. It says, even with a trembling voice, "Lord, I don't understand anything, but I still believe." And let me tell you something you might need to hear today, that faith is enough for God to work. Faith is not always a roaring fire. Sometimes it's barely a spark, a fragile flame the winds of life try to snuff out. But Isaiah 42:3 says, "A bruised reed He will not break, and a smoldering wick He will not snuff out." In other words, God does not reject the weak or extinguish the little faith you have left. On the contrary, He protects it, revives it, honors it. There's something inside you that still believes, even when the pain is heavy, even when uncertainty is overwhelming, even when things don't change the way you hoped. That to God is more than enough. Because He's not looking for perfect faith, but for genuine faith. Faith that says, even if it costs me, I trust. Even if it hurts, I obey. Even if I don't understand, I surrender. Why is this kind of faith so important in the middle of pain? Because in easy moments, anyone can believe. But in brokenness, in loss, in silence, believing becomes an act of spiritual war. It becomes a declaration to heaven and hell. I am wounded, but not defeated. I am tired, but not surrendered. I am crying, but I keep worshiping. And that has eternal value. Your faith isn't just holding you up, it's also becoming a testimony to others. Many times you don't even notice, but people are watching how you walk through the storm. And when they see you still trusting, still praying, still praising despite everything, you are preaching with your life louder than 1,000 words. Hebrews 11:6 says, "Without faith it is impossible to please God." And the faith that pleases God is not the kind that gets things quickly, but the kind that stands firm even when it sees nothing. That's the faith God honors. That's the faith that moves mountains. That's the faith that makes hell tremble, because the enemy can take things away from you, but he cannot take away a faith anchored in the heart of God. So today, even if you're weak, even if you feel at your limit, even if you think your faith isn't enough, God sees it and treasures it, and He will answer that faith. Maybe not the way you expect, maybe not at the moment you want, but He will. Because God does not ignore a heart that keeps believing in Him, even when everything is falling apart. So don't let that flame go out. Protect it, feed it with the Word, care for it with prayer, surround yourself with people who also believe, and above all, stay close to God's presence, because in His presence, your faith is strengthened, even when you don't realize it. Your faith in the middle of this process is more powerful than you think. You are not alone. You are not lost. You are not defeated. You are being shaped by the hands of the God who honors those who believe, even in the middle of pain.